Nagasone Kotetsu is a well-known 17th century Japanese sword maker during the Edo period. Now, his name has been borrowed for the CPU cooler here by Scythe. Let's see if this third edition is as sharp as it looks. Welcome to Machines More. We're going to take a quick look at a cooler launching today. This is the Scythe Kotetsu Mark III, and it is a slimmer single tower cooler from the Japanese company. Big thanks to Scythe for preparing the test sample for us today. As with all reviews on this channel, they are not paid for by the company and they are independently tested. Many of you are familiar with the Scythe Mugen 5, which is a popular, pretty wide single tower cooler. This one here, the Kotetsu 3, is definitely slimmer. Now, I haven't tested the previous versions before, so this is my first experience with this one. It comes equipped with the same fan. This is the current fan that's deployed on the Mugen 5C, which is the Kazeflex Tube. This one is spec'd to go up to 1500 RPM, and surprisingly, the one on my test sample actually went up to 1550 RPM, still within the variance that's specified. Now, despite that, it's still a somewhat limiting maximum RPM compared to some competing products on the market, but some older Scythe products, they only went up to 1200 RPM, so compared to that, it's a decent bump up. The form factor here is somewhat NR200 and bigger mini-itx case friendly. It does come spec'd at 154 millimeters of height off the CPU, even though I did measure a little bit higher than that. The odd dimension here is actually the width of the unit, which comes in at 138 millimeters. In one orientation, the cover interferes with the crossbar, and the other one, it doesn't. But I wanted to test with the fan a little bit closer to the rear, since all the heat sinks have been historically tested with a rear intake configuration. On a board like the Gigabyte one that I'm testing with here, the plastic cover does get in the way of the top crossbar. In addition, I had to remove the top fan that's over the heatsink usually. So just to expedite the testing along, I took off the cover because that seemed to be interfering with the crossbar. And that's something you can do if you don't have enough clearance. It just pops right off, and then you end up with a piece like this. So this is just cosmetic plastic. With the heatsink cover on, there is some interference with the NR200P's glass panel, but when you take off that cover, does the glass panel fit on the NR200P? RAM clearance or rear I/O heatsink clearance shouldn't be an issue either. It is slightly offset, so even on a mini-itx board, you should be able to mount it in a configuration that doesn't interfere with your board components. This one sports 4 dual loop heat pipes, which is 2 fewer than the beefier Mugen 5, and a nickel plated base plate, so pretty big here. Hardware is current, LGA 1700 and AM4, AM5 are all supported as well. One thing I did notice when I mounted my AM4 test board here was that the mounting bars are shared across both Intel and AMD platforms. And unfortunately, the AMD set gets these half holes that are drilled at the end of the bars. Now, it's not the end of the world for installation, but it is a little bit more finicky when installing it, since it is possible to slip away from the screw shaft when mounting. The attachment bar on the heatsink is connected with a thumb screw, which is also a bit of an odd choice, since most manufacturers, they will choose to use a screw here to get more torque. It's not a huge issue at the end of the day, but the heatsink, it does move a little bit even after attachment, so I don't think that thumb screw can give enough torque here. Perhaps the performance would improve a little bit with a little bit more pressure, but do make sure to apply enough thermal paste, and it is they do include a little pouch here instead of the usual tube. I tested this on a 5800X and compared to a few heatsinks that you might also be considering, especially in the NR200 or NR200P, and also against the reference grade Noctua U12A at a moderate noise level here. If you take a look at the comparison against the Mugen 5C, which is using the same fan at the same RPM, the bigger heatsink does have a bigger advantage at the moderate fan speed. At a higher noise level, the Kotetsu 3 does catch up quite a bit to the 5C. In the past, I've noticed that the Mugen 5 doesn't benefit much from higher fan speeds past, roughly that 1200, 1300 RPM mark, but the Kotetsu 3 does, and probably that's owing to the slimmer profile here. And it almost catches the bigger and more heat pipe equipped heatsink. One thing to keep in mind is that this width dimension here might be a little bit restrictive. So in mini-itx space, Might be safer if you're using a board with a lower socket position like an ASUS one. I haven't tested Cooler Master's Hyper 212 on the 5800X yet, but based on other testing against the Mugen 5, such as on the 5600X, the Kotetsu 3 would appear to slot in similarly against that cooler. So I think par for course here for a single tower with 4 heat pipes. This one I think would be perfect for 5600X or the non-X Ryzen 7000 chips. With higher fan speed, something like the 7600X would also be fine too. Now if you don't want to run higher TDP chips like the Intel 13600K or 7700X Ryzen, might be a good bet jumping up to the Fuma 2 if you can fit it. That's still going to be the superior cooler, but that has been a little bit harder to find in stock lately. I don't have an MSRP yet for this guy. I'm expecting somewhere around the $50 mark, since that's just under where the Mugen 5 is. This video is being released on the embargo day, so I don't have this yet, but I should be able to put that info down below in the comments at that time. So I hope you found this helpful. Pretty simple cooler here, but it is always nice to have another option to consider. Links down below. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Like if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.